I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is The Entrepreneurial Mind. I'll be back to talk with our guest, Chris Sloan with Baker Donelson, after a moment.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
So, Chris, you've been running around the entrepreneurial circles here in Nashville for quite a while. What kind of led you into this kind of a practice of working primarily with the entrepreneurial firms in town?
It was a combination of good timing as to when my career started and sort of a fit for my, shall we say, geekier personality traits. But I came out of law school in '99, and it was right as the dot-com bubble was peaking and just about to burst, although we didn't know that at the time. And my former firm, like most of the firms in Nashville, was just then starting to see an influx of clients that were facing these sort of internet technology, software law issues, including a lot of startups in that area. And so they needed someone to really develop that expertise, and they asked me if I wanted to be the guy to do it. And being a card-carrying nerd, I immediately said yes, and started learning through a variety of different channels sort of how to do the work. And so I got a lot of opportunities as a very young lawyer that were probably faster than a lot of my colleagues because this was so new and I was really the expert.
So which one of those was your first, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I'm ready for this moment? Because I'm sure you had a couple.
Oh, I had quite a few, yeah. And it was probably a good thing that I didn't know what I didn't know, because I might have been more scared than I was. But I was essentially the lead attorney for an early stage high growth software company negotiating a $40 million software contract.
And this is how many years out of law school?
This was when I was about a third or fourth year lawyer. And I had a partner that was working with me who was a very experienced deal lawyer.
Right.
But a lot of the issues we were negotiating were around the technical aspects of the deal and the IT aspects of the deal, and I was the guy because no one else knew it.
Right.
And so that was
sort of like the one guy knew how to turn on the computer, became the computer expert, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so that was probably one of many opportunities. But the benefit was that I got a lot of hands-on experience a lot more quickly than a lot of my classmates did. And then the way it evolved into my practice currently, and I still do a lot of technology laws, a lot of the work I was doing was for early stage high growth companies, startups, or companies that were still in the sort of high growth early stage phase, and I really enjoyed it. And so that's sort of the way I built my practice, was focused on working with entrepreneurs and early stage companies, particularly tech.
But as a young lawyer, how did you kind of build credibility in the community? Because when I first noticed you, you were still a fairly young attorney and pretty well entrenched.
I had a very simple personal branding strategy, or goal, I guess. My goal was that I eventually wanted to get to a point where, most anyone in Nashville who was doing a high growth startup was aware of who I was and what I was doing. And the only way you get there is you just have to show up.
And you anything with entrepreneurship in town, you were there.
Anything that involved entrepreneurship or technology, I showed up. I badgered the Technology Council to eventually put me on the board, which led to me eventually becoming chairman of the board. I volunteered for every speaking engagement I could find. I wrote articles. Anytime the Nashville Business Journal wanted an article that anywhere came close to what I was doing, I would jump on it. All of it was just simply trying to build the relationships and create that brand awareness so that people knew that that's what I did.
So now that you've had several years of dealing with many startups, you must be seeing some patterns, some common legal misunderstandings, misconceptions, and mistakes that entrepreneurs make. What are the ones that really stand out that you see most common? Yeah,
there's a few sort of consistent problems that I think are easily avoidable. One of the most common is not taking steps to protect your intellectual property. And that's not always, being aggressive about filing patents. There's sort of some cost benefit and analysis issues that go into that. But things like not being smart about using confidentiality agreements to protect truly secret stuff, trade secrets.
Right.
Very common mistake is engaging a software developer or a web designer or someone else who's doing creative work and either not having a contract at all or not having a contract that includes an appropriate clause about ownership of intellectual property. People misunderstand the concept of a work made for hire frequently. It rarely applies in those contexts, but people assume that it does, which is
Right.
natural. But so that can create a lot of problems. Another common problem I'd say is businesses that form with more than one founder really should consider, and frankly, I think it's a best practice to have some sort of a reciprocal vesting agreement so
Right.
that if one of those founders leaves for whatever reason before they're vested, then you've already got an automatic way to handle the equity.
Right. And I'd probably go so far as to say when one of them leaves, because
Yeah.
it's more often than not.
Well, and what I tell people is life happens, right? I mean,
Yeah.
founders leave companies for all sorts of reasons. They can be good, bad, or indifferent. It could be the job of a lifetime. It
Right.
could be they hate each other. It could be they have to move to California to take care of a sick relative. The actual reason they leave isn't really germane. It's the point is simply that they all went into the business with the expectation that they were all going to be putting their own sweat equity into it. And when one person leaves, that creates an imbalance, and you have a bunch of equity that's sort of hanging out there. And if you don't have a mechanism for dealing with it, it can be a really huge problem. I know
An
of
expensive problem too.
well, and sometimes an unsolvable problem.
Right.
I know of two very promising startups in Nashville in the last 5 years that collapsed in part because of exactly this issue.
So how do you guide partners through that kind of discussion? I have my own tool, and it's something that we've developed, and we have them. It's amazing the insights they get, because we just have them ask some basic questions,
Yeah.
and then share it with each other about life goals, what would happen if, work habits. I mean, how do you do that as an attorney?
It's more or less a similar process. I mean, we have a list of a standard list of issues that co-founders need to think through. And so what we do is we'll either formally or informally talk them through those issues, and we can certainly make recommendations about what are the most common ways to address it. But the important thing is to educate them so that they can think through it. And most of the time they'll go with one of the standard solutions. Every once in a while they'll go for something completely different.
A lot of times what I hear is, well, I'll just let the lawyers tell me what I should do. And I said, no, you need to figure out what you want to do, and the lawyers will figure out how to put it in the agreement.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think it's a common mistake people make when they're either using lawyers or sort of viewing the role that the lawyer has. A really good lawyer, and it doesn't matter whether it's a business lawyer or a litigator, whoever it is, their job isn't to tell you what to do, except in those few cases where it's do this or don't do this or you're going to go to jail.
Right,
but,
right.
It's to educate you about what the risks and pros and cons are of the different decisions you might make. And then as a business person, you can make an informed business decision.
Right.
That's my job, is to make sure that you're in a position to make an informed business decision.
And I remember my own experiences. I don't know that I understood that even as well prepared as I was, and it hits you pretty hard the first time. You do feel alone.
Yeah.
And you realize that your job is not to run my company. That's my job.
Yeah, a good lawyer is not a yes man, and a good lawyer is not a dictator or a commander.
Right.
A good lawyer is an educator and
Right.
should have the heart of a teacher, and should also be willing to tell you if you're about to do something stupid. They should say, by the way, you're about to do something stupid, and here's why. And then if you still want to do the thing that the lawyer thinks is stupid, that's fine. At least you're making an informed decision.
Right. Right. So what do you see as the state now of technology entrepreneurship in Nashville? We put a lot of energy into it. There's been a lot of us trying to encourage it and work on it. What do you see as some of the big wins and some of the hurdles we have yet to overcome?
Sure. Well, we're in a really good place. The momentum is there. There's a lot of exciting things happening. There are resources for entrepreneurs here now that weren't even envisioned 10 years ago, let alone existing. There's the Nashville Entrepreneurial Center, the program that you started and built at Belmont. There's you still got the Nashville Technology Council. You've got the Nashville Software School. Jumpstart Foundry Group. Now HealthBox. It goes on and on. We've got this amazing set of resources and a community that's growing and evolving around it. So those are the real pluses and the real wins.
And I have seen that growth. I mean, people ask if it's real.
Been tremendous.
It is real, and I see a big diversification in technology, which I think is the healthiest thing right now.
I agree. It's not just health IT.
Right.
There's a lot of tech and tech-enabled companies that are not healthcare, and that's part of that growth. I mean, you and I are, I think, in an interesting position because our careers in this field span in Nashville, the time before and what we have now, so we sort of have that perspective. But it's a good time. I think the big hurdle that we still have to overcome is I think we still have we have a capital shortage, and then secondarily we still have a bit of a talent shortage.
Yeah, I think there's still some gaps in the community too in terms of resources. I think people, as hard as we've tried, I see a lot of people still not knowing how to get the resources they need.
Yeah, it's still, they're coming, but you're right.
Yeah.
I think these are all problems that we're on track to solve.
Yep.
But it takes time, particularly solving the talent gap and the capital issue. But we'll get there. I mean, I'm as bullish on our entrepreneurial ecosystem as I've ever been.
And I join you with that. So
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in today, Chris. Enjoyed
Thanks
it very
for
much.
having me. I enjoyed the chat.
Thanks.
All right.